शंकर के सानिध्य में साधारण कुछ भी नहीं, सब कुछ अलौकिक है, असाधारण है, अविस्मरणीय है।
Hello everyone, you're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. Prime Minister Narendra Modi once again has led the charge, combining two central pillars of his brand, Astha and Vikas. After Revamp of Kedarnath and the Kashi Vishwanath corridor, the Prime Minister today inaugurated the 850 crore Mahakaleshwar Temple corridor in Ujjain, unveiling a model for religious tourism in India. The Mahakaleshwar Temple is dedicated to Lord Shiva and assumes importance in the Hindu faith as it houses one of the 12 Jyotirlingas. The Prime Minister has unveiled phase 1 of the project, while phase 2 is likely to be completed by June 2023, where the government aims to redevelop the ancient routes surrounding the corridor as well as the wider Ujjain area. The Prime Minister has never hesitated in playing the Hindu card, redeveloping religious sites to reboot India's ancient culture and expand India's scope as a tourist destination. So let me first give you an overview of what Phase 1 has achieved. So we are looking at Phase 1. The Phase 1 was built at a cost of 350 crores. A 900-meter pedestrian corridor has been constructed. The corridor, in fact, connects the plaza to Mahakal Temple. The temple area has also been increased by almost 8 times. So there has been a massive infrastructure push in this entire area, and it has been designed on the basis of Shiv Leela. Now let me give you a sense of this entire facelift and how the site will be looking differently now. It has two grand gateways, the Nandi Dwar and Pinaki Dwar. The site is decorated with 108 ornate pillars of intricately carved sandstone. It has a running panel of murals with over 50 murals with stories from Shiv Puran. It portrays different forms of Lord Shiva with 93 statues from the main door to the temple. Now let's first listen in to what the Prime Minister said today.
ये अद्भुतता, ये आनंद, महाकाल की ये महिमा, ये महात्म्य महाकाल लोक में लौकिक कुछ भी नहीं है। शंकर के सानिध्य में साधारण कुछ भी नहीं है, सब कुछ अलौकिक है, असाधारण है। हमारी तपस्या और आस्था से जब महाकाल प्रसन्न होते हैं तो उनके आशीर्वाद से ऐसे ही भव्य स्वरूप का निर्माण होता है। और महाकाल का आशीर्वाद जब मिलता है तो काल की रेखाएं मिट जाती है, समय की सीमाएं सिमट जाती है और अनंत के अवसर प्रस्फुटित हो जाते हैं। अंत से अनंत यात्रा आरंभ हो जाती है। महाकाल लोक की ये भव्यता भी समय की सीमाओं से परे आने वाली कई पीढ़ियों को अलौकिक दिव्यता के दर्शन कराएगी, भारत की सांस्कृतिक और आध्यात्मिक चेतना को ऊर्जा देगी। आज नया भारत जब अपने प्राचीन मूल्यों के साथ आगे बढ़ रहा है तो आस्था के साथ साथ विज्ञान और शोध की परंपराओं को भी पुनर्जीवित कर रहा है। आज हम एस्ट्रोनॉमी के क्षेत्र में दुनिया की बड़ी ताकतों के बराबर खड़े हो रहे हैं। आज भारत दूसरे देशों की सैटेलाइट भी स्पेस में लॉन्च कर रहा है। मिशन चंद्रयान और मिशन गगनयान जैसे अभियानों के जरिए भारत आकाश की वो छलांग लगाने के लिए तैयार है जो हमें एक नई ऊंचाई देगी। आज रक्षा के क्षेत्र में भारत पूरी ताकत से आत्मनिर्भरता की ओर आगे बढ़ रहा है। इसी तरह आज हमारे युवा स्किल हो, स्पोर्ट्स में भी स्टार्टअप, एक चीज नहीं, नए स्टार्टअप के साथ, नए यूनिकॉर्न के साथ हर क्षेत्र में भारत की प्रतिभा का डंका बजा रहे हैं। और भाइयों बहनों, हमें भी याद रखना है, ये न भूले, जहां इनोवेशन है वहीं पर रिनोवेशन भी है। हजारों वर्ष पूर्व जब भारत का भौगोलिक स्वरूप आज से अलग रहा होगा, तब से ये माना जाता रहा है कि उज्जैन भारत के केंद्र में है। एक तरह से ज्योतिषीय गणनाओं में उज्जैन न केवल भारत का केंद्र रहा है, बल्कि ये भारत की आत्मा का भी केंद्र रहा है। ये वो नगर है जो हमारी पवित्र 7 पुरियों में से एक गिना जाता है। ये वो नगर है जहां स्वयं भगवान कृष्ण ने भी आकर शिक्षा ग्रहण की थी। उज्जैन ने महाराजा विक्रमादित्य का वो प्रताप देखा है जिसने भारत के नए स्वर्ण काल की शुरुआत की थी। महाकाल की इस धरती से विक्रम संवत के रूप में भारतीय काल गणना का एक नया अध्याय शुरू हुआ था। उज्जैन के क्षण क्षण में, पल पल में इतिहास सिमटा हुआ है।
And joining me now, Sanju Verma, National Spokesperson of the BJP, Swati Malik representing the Congress. We have Professor Kapil Kumar, historian, Anurag Naidu is a political analyst, and Dr. Geeta Bhatt is an academician. Sanju, is restoring Hindu temple sites one of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's abiding legacy which no one is still talking about? From Somnath to Kedarnath to Kashi to Ayodhya and now Mahakal Lok. Are these just some of the examples of how he has blended religiosity and cultural tourism?
You know, Maria, I have been doing a couple of debates over the last 48 hours on this Mahakal corridor, and I have to give you one thing. Your introduction by far was the best because it was one of the only introductions which also spoke of temple tourism, cultural tourism. I want to say a couple of things. You're absolutely right. You know, Narendra Modi is an unabashed Hindu who wears his Hinduism on his sleeve very unapologetically. And I think, you know, as he rightly said, when we speak of dharma, he said, जब हम धर्म की बात करते हैं तो हमारे लिए धर्म का मतलब होता है संकल्प, और हमारे लिए संकल्प का मतलब है मानव सेवा और विश्व का कल्याण. So when Narendra Modi talks of religion, you know, it is very difficult to simply compartmentalize it. You know, if you give it a more expansive picture, if you look at it in a more expanded form from a vision that Prime Minister Modi has, you will realize he's trying to marry Astha and Vikas. He's trying to marry civilizational ethos with development. He's trying to marry cultural heritage which we were scared to be proud of over the last 7 decades with economic resurgence. Don't forget, Maria, even in this speech, you know, he spoke of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
He spoke of
and
Startup
unicorns.
India.
Yes.
He spoke of unicorns. He spoke of Gaganyaan project. He spoke of renovation. He spoke of innovation. The limited point I'm trying to make is, yes, You have to look at the Mahakal corridor from a religious angle. Don't limit yourself only to that.
Okay.
Because don't forget, Maria, I will just take 20 seconds to tell you that when, the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel statue was commissioned, I remember everybody saying, what a waste of money. And before coming on your show, I just culled out some data and I was astonished that more than 2 crore people have visited Sardar Patel's statue at Kevadia in just the last 9 months.
Yes.
Whereas in a year, you don't have more than 30 lakh people visiting the Statue of Liberty.
Okay. Swati Malik, talking purely from that point of view, the Prime Minister here is talking about economics. He's saying that this is good economics, while he has been pretty clear as far as his religious identity is concerned. He has talked about it. He has worn it on his sleeves. What impact is it likely to have on the future generations and the larger socio-cultural makeup of India?
Maria, first of all, I must clarify this bit from behalf of the Congress party that religion is a very personal emotion, right? And it is very good that the Prime Minister wears it. All of us are very proud of our religion. We've all, done our bit towards our various religions, our own personal religions. But again, there's a very big difference out here. And what the Congress party wants to convey today through your esteemed channel, Maria, is that let's not hog the whole limelight and let's not take credit for the work done by the previous government. Now, it would have, as a Prime Minister there, Mr. Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of the country. He's not speaking there as the spokesperson or as a head of BJP, correct? So as a Prime Minister, it would have really, lifted his stature as well if he had given credit to Mr. Kamal Nath's government as well when this whole project was initiated. Right? But if you would notice, throughout his speech, there is complete silence, as if this work started only after the BJP formed government in Madhya Pradesh. So when we talk about, such big events, it is very grand, it is beautiful, and Mahakal kisi ek ke nahi ho sakte. Mahakal to sabke hain, and we are nobody. We are nobody to be able to do anything for Mahakal. Mahakal is the one who is doing it for all of us. So we are not on who did what. But yes, it is, as a Prime Minister, it would have only suited him better to give credit to the government previous to
so
him.
then in that, this is about the credit war. At least the Congress clearly right now is saying that this was needed and it is very well done. A great work to the BJP. But Sanju, why no credit to Mr. Kamal Nath?
Maria, one of my colleagues coined a term for INC, saying INC ka matlab hai I need corruption. I think I will rephrase that. It is I need credit. Credit GVs are, jumping around ever since Prime Minister made that fiery and dynamic speech, which is so typical of him. I just want to say a couple of things. The point here is not about credit. Let's be factual in our argument. I heard a pujari who was being interviewed on your channel by one of your reporters. And he said that it is not in 2016, as Prime Minister Modi said. He said, actually, project was conceived right after Prime Minister Modi assumed power in 2014, when he decided to announce Ujjain as one of the smart cities and a master plan was made. Then in 2016, there was a concrete conceptualization. In 2017, and this is very important, Maya, in 2017, tender and land acquisition via tendering process was kick-started by the Shivraj Singh Chauhan government, along with preparation of the DPR, called the Detailed Project Report, which happens only after you acquire 90% of the land. And Kamal Nath, he's actually contradicted himself. He said, I instituted a 3-member committee of my senior cabinet ministers. मैं सिर्फ बार-बार कांग्रेस के कितने प्रवक्ताओं को पूछती हूँ, I've been on umpteen channels, name those 3 cabinet ministers of the erstwhile Kamal Nath cabinet who were instituted to bring the Mahakal.
Okay, quickly respond to that, and then I bring in other panelists. Quickly. Swati Malik, respond.
Absolutely. Yes.
Name them.
So, no, I have the names. I can give the names if you give me a second. Yes, just give me a moment. And I'm glad Ms. Verma has asked these questions, because the names are, just give me a moment. Yes, जिसमें से Mr. Sajjan Singh Verma, Mr. PC Sharma, and Miss मंत्री श्री जयवर्धन सिंह.
चलिए इन तीनों का नाम लेकर के आपको क्रेडिट दे देना चाहिए संजू वर्मा.
अब तो नाम
चलिए
भी
खत्म
बता
करिए, क्रेडिट की बात ही खत्म करी जाए. चलिए, let me bring in Professor Kapil Kumar. Professor Kapil Kumar, will it be fair to say that after Ahilya Bai Holkar, the illustrious 18th century queen of Malwa, who had committed herself to restoring Hindu temples, Prime Minister Modi has taken upon himself to take up this entire project of renovation of Hindu holy sites, rebuild them? How did the intervening centuries saw no such efforts?
Maria, I'd like to say here that I will rise above politics and this credit sharing and all that which is going on. Because I feel very sad that when our ancient Indian heritage is being revived, okay, when something which was the glory of India at a time and the world acknowledged that is being restored, reducing it to debates for credit sharing and reducing it to debates for only this, to Hinduism, I will not agree to that.
Okay.
I will ask my co-panelists a question who want to just reduce it to religion only. Tell me, who is the biggest employer and job generator in this country today? It is not the modern industry. It is religion, which still employs the largest number of people in this country, right from a flower seller, women selling flowers down, to those artisans who make idols, who make malas, who make all these things, the temple structures, whatever it is, and the big businesses involved in it, in these constructions and in these manufacturing. Name me any industry in India which can be more job-oriented and more economy-oriented in terms of generating economy for the country than religion in this country. Add to that the expenditure by religious tourism and pilgrimage, not from India only, but from world over.
Yes. So the point
So
being
look at
made,
it from the totality aspects.
Yes, the compelling economic model for creating employment opportunities at multiple levels is what is being seen here. Are we seeing an economic model then at play whose potential people aren't even realizing, many would say, and Prime Minister's idea of developing non-metros and small towns as cultural religious destinations may require a study in itself, Professor?
You see, what is happening today is that earlier all the expenses of ASI and all was going in building some huge, monuments, caring for those monuments and bringing tourism only to those particular cities. If it is multifold city country opening up today for religious purposes or for different other purposes and opening other attractions also, I don't see any wrong in it. Rather, I'll say that it is both economic as well as religious when things are opening.
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you one thing.
Quickly.
When an ancient church is open, is renovated in Europe, no one says Christianity is being done. They will say an old church has been restored and all.
Okay, Swati Malik,
they will not divide it into
Swati
religious
Malik,
aspects.
will it be fair to look at it from the religious prism then?
I quite agree with Professor Saab out here. We are not bringing in religion at all.
Okay.
Congress party is not opposing or objecting to the factor that Ujjain is being developed in such a grand manner. Of course, it should be developed. All small cities, all this religious tourism should be there. We are not opposing this at all. So let's not, we are not against the glorification of Ujjain today. We are against, and we just keep raising our voices against the Prime Minister who keeps grabbing the credit. Is it? Everything is a photo op out, Maria. We will agree with that. Whether it is a small thing of him meeting his mother or whether it is something as grand as today, everything is a photo op.
Professor Kapil Kumar, the photo opportunity part is being questioned by the Congress party.
You see, my question is that why in everything the question comes out of credit and non-credit and discredit.
Okay.
Will the Congress party, if I start talking of credits and non-credits, just a minute.
Yes.
If I talk of credits and non-credits, they keep shouting Galwan and China. Will they take the discredit that how many lands to China were given by Nehru? Please.
Okay, let's bring it back on this.
Let us live in present and now look at things and to move ahead.
Anurag Naidu and Dr. Geeta Bhatt have not even got into this discussion. You know, Dr. Geeta Bhatt, I'm looking at what all has been done by the Prime Minister in terms of these redevelopment projects that we are looking at. Kashi Vishwanath Dham, Kedarnath Temple, following the floods of 2013, there has been almost complete rejuvenation and complete reconstruction that has happened. The redevelopment project of Somnath Temple, Ram Temple in Ayodhya, temple restoration in Kashmir. And all of this is being linked with economics. That it is also an opportunity for economic opportunities in terms of, because even right now when the Prime Minister addressed the country and dedicated the redeveloped project to the country, his emphasis was about unicorns. He was talking about economics.
Well, yes, Maria, you see, Prime Minister, I think one of the unique qualities in him is that today we can say that he is actually the brand ambassador to this nation's, these nation's cultural icons, whether it is in terms of places or in terms of monuments, because as he mentioned, in his speech, again and again, where he was talking about the economics, that how India is emerging as a strong economy. At the same time, it is important to understand that economy has to be related to what is very, very close to the heart of the people of this country. And this here, the culture and faith, they are intertwined. As Professor Kapil said, that it is if you look in terms of economy, I think religion or faith per se is one which provides economic route to a large masses of this country, and hence it is important, we need to actually come out of this debate of taking or giving credits. Okay. At this time, it is important to realize that whatever all these places which are, they may be, we are calling them as temples, but please do understand that in ancient India, these temples, they were most powerful,
Yes, so there is a heritage site that is being built. Yes, there is a heritage angle to this. Yes, large-scale construction and infrastructure development as well. But from you, Anurag Naidu, I want to understand another aspect of what is at play. It may just be a coincidence, but I want to understand if there is a subaltern phenomenon at work as well. Are you looking at some kind of that, that entire idea that Ahilya Bhai Holkar was born in a shepherd family in the Dhangar community. Likewise, Prime Minister Modi comes from a caste which has been now part of some kind of a larger social phenomena.
I think it's very simple. It's above that, and I think I would also like to give a perspective which is more hybrid, which is more inclusive. Prime Minister Modi flaunting a religious achievement by initiating some of the corridor redevelopments, clubbed with socio-economic developments. I think there is nothing wrong. He's always been very flamboyant when it comes to his exposure of his religious beliefs and his community, including, coming from a backward community, everything. He's been very open about it. And the people of this country so far have bought into it, and that's how his victories and electoral success tells. And if the people feels he do not have a right narrative, I think they will show the way. But so far, at this point in time, let's not look it from a prism of religion. Let's not try to corner. I'll tell you a very interesting phenomenon. What I observed about this redevelopment plans, not only Ujjain, but Ayodhya, Kashi, coming from South India, all these years for the last 30, 40 years, specifically mentioning the development of the temples in North India has been lagging. We've been always going and feeling very comfortable going to temples like Tirupati, Shirdi, Dharmasthala in Karnataka. We feel very organized. There is a system, there is development, absolutely beautiful corridors. But North India has always been cumbersome, always been chaotic, and always been troublesome for people from other parts of India, which Prime Minister Modi or this government has been very positive in the redevelopment. This also restores, the socio-economic structure, because as one gentleman rightly mentioned, not everyone can do business in Bangalore and Bombay, but these are the small marginalized economic shopkeepers who have these temple corridors at the big They're small town guys, and they find. And also, it has been a part of our culture.
Yes.
There is a movie going on PS1, the Chola Empire Dynasty. We talk about the whole economy of Cholas were around the temple towns,
Yes.
and they have proven that. Even the same
And
temple town that
civilizational
Cholas
developments have
established-
always been around temple
Absolutely.
towns. Yes.
And they have stayed even today. They have
Yes.
stayed true in Tamil Nadu and other places, Kerala. They have stayed true today. They are still the economic superpower. These small towns, temple towns, Madurai and other places, they have been economic. Tanjavur have been economic superpowers. So I think this is a very solid foundation that Prime Minister Modi's vision, he has put his vision
Sanju,
towards, and we should
Sanju,
appreciate that.
Sanju, you know, all panelists are speaking the same in terms of different interpretations, different analysis, different understanding of what we are witnessing, you know, in terms of the push that is coming, particularly around the development of various temple towns, I would say, because that has led to several job opportunities that have been created as well. Does it just stop at giving an answer to the opposition on just the credit war, or will we be seeing a more comprehensive response coming from the government?
You know, Maria, I think first things first, let's be very clear about one thing, that promoting temple tourism, promoting Hindutva, promoting Hinduism, because I don't see any difference between Hindutva and Hinduism, hence I said promoting both of these. That has nothing to do with, you know, economic development. Both run in parallel, in sync and in tandem with each other. And you brought in a very interesting angle of the subaltern. I think when you promote Kashi Vishwanath corridor, when you commission a Sardar Patel statue, when you commission Mahakal corridor, it is not a subaltern angle that is playing out. Please also note that, you know, Kashi Vishwanath corridor today, post its commissioning in the last 9 months, I'm told that more than 1.25 crore tourists have visited Kashi, which is now the cultural capital of Uttar Pradesh. Similarly, what Prime Minister Modi decided to do was that while Bhopal is the executive capital, let it not be lost on anyone that Ujjain is going to be the cultural capital of Madhya Pradesh. The point I'm trying to make is that this is one of the first Prime Ministers in the last 75 years who has effectively embraced growth, development, Astha, Hindutva.
And how do you catch up to his vision, Professor Kapil Kumar? Here is someone who's on a mission, here is someone who has vision, and his scope and idea in terms of what he imagines the small towns of India to be is very different from what we have seen by leaders in the past.
Maria, I have the first-hand experience of this. When in 2018, I was given the task as chief historian to write the history of these 4 museums in Red Fort. 1857, Jallianwala Bagh, Azadi ke Diwane, INA. That was Prime Minister's initiative. So it was not just here, and see Red Fort, what has happened. Earlier, hardly 700-800 people used to visit Red Fort. Now 10,000 people visit, and on weekend it's 15,000. Look at the Central Vista, the kind of criticism which were coming for that, what it has been made into. And also look at it.
On the first weekend itself, it was 2 lakh people. Yes.
Sachi.
The footfalls, yes. Go ahead.
Pardon?
Yes. So the first weekend itself saw the footfall of 2 lakh people on that project that you're talking about, sir. Please go ahead.
Please, let me complete.
Go ahead.
You look at Sachi. You look at Sachi Stupa. That is not Hindu. How Sachi Stupa is being maintained today. Look at its condition which was few years back. Look at Sarnath, how it is being done. Look at some Muslim monuments in Gujarat, how they are being made today for these aspects. It is an overall perspective. The way they are going to convert now many of these buildings of South and North Block into museums. Compare it with Vienna. Compare it with Paris at an international level. You see, our National Museum and Indian Museum in Calcutta, they house 100 times more the objects which they have in their positions but which are kept in the vaults. Why don't we show them to the world? Now, if they happen to be idols, people will say, oh, this is projecting Hinduism.
Okay.
It is our Indian heritage and culture which is being put into
Yes.
showcasing it.
Yes.
And I, having specialized in tourism marketing also, I can say that it is a very, very attractive venture. People used to complain when they used to come from outside. Let me give this last line.
Yes.
They would go to a pilgrimage center and seeing the conditions over there, just do the darshan and come back. Today, with this kind of a thing, they will like to stay there for 3 days, 4 days. Now, what it increases? It increases the economic contribution to that economy now. One
this
tourist
is
means
about
5 jobs.
Yes, and it's also about
Internationally recognized.
cultural heritage, that push that is coming in. Thank you so much for speaking
Definitely.
to us. Professor
Why
Kapil
should
Kumar,
not we be proud of-
absolutely. Anurag Naidu, Dr. Geeta Bhatt, Swati Malik and Sanju Verma. On that note, we are moving to our second discussion. This is about what's happening between Russia and Ukraine.
As the Ukraine conflict continues to rage, we are often asked, whose side are we on? India is on the side of peace and will remain firmly there.
In the wake of Russia's missile strike on Kyiv, which killed over 10 civilians, India seems to have changed its diplomatic track over the conflict in Ukraine. India voted to reject Russia's demand for a secret ballot in the UN General Assembly on a draft resolution to condemn the annexation of 4 regions of Ukraine. India favored a public vote along with over 100 other nations. It did not stop there. After the motion to hold a recorded vote was adopted, Russia appealed against the move, and India was among the 100 nations who voted against the challenge. After that, Russia sought a reconsideration, a last-ditch move by the Putin regime. The General Assembly rejected the plea after 104 nations, including India, voted against it. Now, just last month, India abstained while Russia vetoed a draft UN Security Council resolution to declare the annexation of the 4 Ukrainian territories as invalid. India has also maintained that stand, as Russia has been a critical ally for decades, backing India's defense sector and providing diplomatic support to our stand on Kashmir. But this new shift comes as the MEA says, that is the Minister of External Affairs says, escalation of hostilities is in no one's interest, noting that India stood ready to support all de-escalation strategies. So how should we see this diplomatic maneuvering? Has India drawn the red line with Russia? Joining me on the show, Xenia is an independent journalist based in St. Petersburg in Russia. We have Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, former Secretary of Minister of External Affairs, Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow, ORF, and a strategic affairs expert. I'm going to begin with you, Pinak Chakravarti. India, for the first time, voted at the UNGA against Russia's demand for a secret ballot on a draft resolution to condemn its annexation of 4 regions of Ukraine. Why this shift?
I don't know why people are seeing it as a shift. It's a vote on a procedural issue, whether you want an open vote or you want a secret vote. Russia wanted a secret vote. We said, no, let's have an open vote. So I don't think this should be seen as some kind of a huge change in India's position.
Okay.
Because it was on a procedural issue. Let us see when the vote happens, open vote happens, then we will see how India votes, and then we can revisit that question of whether India has changed her policy.
Okay. So there's been no change in stance. Sushant Sareen, how are you looking at these developments? Or will you be also terming this as procedural?
Yeah, even in the past on some of the procedural votes, we haven't really gone with the Russians. I think it's premature to jump to conclusions. I think when the main vote takes place, and if at all we vote against Russia, then I think maybe there will be also a bit of a, we are walking a bit of a tightrope on this right now. And I think there is a lot of pressure which is also coming on us. We're trying to resist as much as we can and trying to protect our interests. But beyond a point, we might have to try and balance things out a little bit. It is possible that we might vote against Russia and still continue to do business with Russia. It is also possible that we abstain when tomorrow's vote comes.
Okay.
So I think we'll be in a better position to judge where exactly the Indian policy is going after the vote.
Okay. So we'll have to wait for another 24 hours perhaps, Sushant Sareen?
Yeah, whenever the vote is taking place in the UNGA.
Okay. Conrad Thewa, how are you looking at these developments and how is it being viewed in the establishment in Russia?
So I guess taking forward the thoughts by the previous speaker, we don't see the change so far, and I think it has been nearly 8 months since the escalation has started. So India's position is quite clear, at least to those, in Moscow and those in Kremlin. I think India's position is quite clear, despite what we read in the media. See, all these talks about India changing its position, it's more of a PR exercise rather than the real geopolitics. So I think so far we are okay. India has India is too powerful economy now to be able to do what it is doing, be able to conduct its policy in such a way that it really protects its interests. Like, unlike many countries in Europe, as we have seen, India is able. I mean, the wisdom of India's foreign policy is unquestionable here in this conflict. So we can only applaud it.
Okay, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, as the speaker said, we have to see nobody benefits in this war. Neither Russia nor Ukraine, obviously, as people are dying and infrastructure is getting destroyed. But no other country, maybe except the US, which keeps pumping Ukraine with its weapons. So we have seen the rising numbers, in the US weapons industry, the tremendous profits. So nobody else benefits. The entire global economy is on the verge of collapse, and every country, of course, has to first of all do its best.
Then why is Putin continuing with it? Is this some kind of domestic compulsion? On what exactly is he communicating to the world if he is only escalating the war? It's 8 months
speak for
and
Mr.
counting.
Putin. I'm not privy to his thoughts or talks in Kremlin. But we cannot say that he is escalating or Russia is escalating. Russia is being provoked on a daily basis. So, the escalation which we see now in the last 2 days with the horrific strikes on Ukraine, with Belarus joining the war, this escalation was predicted, expected for the last 1 month. And, every week we have some major event that just brings this escalation further.
Okay.
So nobody is ready to negotiate. And I think every speech of Indian, foreign minister or a senior official will have a, word negotiations.
Okay.
Why don't you start negotiating?
Sushant Sareen, when you say tightrope walk, how long can India continue with this tightrope walk? Understanding fully well its economic understanding and, of course, what it gets from Russia.
No, look, one part is what it gets from Russia. The other part is its engagement with the larger West. Russia is an important country for us in the defense domain. It's becoming increasingly important in the energy security domain. But then that's not the sum and substance of our relationship with the rest of the world. We have a very, very productive relationship with the West. We have an extremely productive relationship with other countries which are not necessarily in the favor of Russia. Now, if if push comes to shove and there is a lot of pressure which is mounted on India, and it's not just the economic dimension of this whole thing, it's also the political and the diplomatic dimension of the whole thing. We've already seen certain signals, if you will, coming, in terms of, the Americans trying to show that they can rebalance in the region, trying to prop up the Pakistanis. You've seen that German foreign minister's statement. I don't know if she made that statement out of sheer ignorance or because she's a woke kind of a person or whatever other reason her motivations were.
Yes.
But, it's too much of a coincidence with all these things happening. The hostility of the Western media, for example,
Yes.
and how that's coloring opinion on India in the West.
Yes.
While we might be doing whatever we are doing in our own national interest, beyond a point, our national interest might start suffering if we are seen to be leaning too far in Russia's favor. That does not mean we want to go against Russia, but like every other country, we will have our own compulsion. Now, how long we can resist that, how long we can persist with this policy of standing in the middle and not taking sides is really the multi-billion-dollar question, right?
Okay. I am being joined by a Ukrainian member of parliament as well, Aleona, in fact, Solomia Bobrokska. Thank you so much. Solomia, how is the situation on the ground and how is India's stand, particularly at the UNGA, being viewed there?
So first of all, in Ukraine, we have today more than a dozen of rockets hit our heating power stations through the old Ukraine. And even now I switch on the light, but after our conversation, I will switch off. In order not to, we ask not to press on the electricity power station and to keep the balance. And of course, about if the discussions is going about India, of course, we are waiting, and we heard the statement, Indian and by China as well, about de-escalation of the situation and warnings about especially using the nuclear tactical weapon. I hope once India, despite very close links with the Russian Federation, will finally be very clear with Russia as their allies and partners, saying no to the war and invasion and conventional war in Ukraine. We hope once India, maybe it's really hard to be our partner, but clear with the federation. That's all we need, and all we asking India to do, and somehow to stop this, to stop the escalation and to stop the invasion in Ukraine from the Russia.
And Solomia, that has been India's stand for long, ever since the war began, that diplomacy and dialogue is the only way forward, that the two sides have to come on the talking table. And I'm looking at what India's permanent representative to the UN actually said, that India's stand actually symbolizes India's human-centric development approach, a central tenet of our national beliefs and values, which perceives the whole world as one family.
Yes, so it's a very nice statement. But despite this, we have to check the trade, especially in defense sector, between India and Russian Federation. And we really don't want to see, and that's very obvious, the using Indian Russian weapon, which was bought in India by the Russian side. And that's what we afraid of. And if somehow India can negotiate with Russia and saying this them in order to stop, because negotiations, believe me, cannot be now be found near the table, and we believe it unfortunately will be found only on the battlefield, because the price what Ukrainians paid for the last 7 months is too high, and no one from us, nor president, neither president nor each average citizen, especially after yesterday escalation and hitting the very civilian objects, is not ready to find somehow the diplomatic negotiations with the Russian Federation. So our call to India will be somehow to find a common language with Russian Federation in order them, first of all, not to trade with them in the defense security sector, and not to support them with this, and somehow to find the words to stop cruel invasion in Ukraine.
All right, thank you so much to all the panelists who are joining me. Now let me get you a ground report. As the conflict rages, Putin continues to face more and more challenges in his own territory, namely the former Soviet republics. CNN's Ivan Watson with this report.
On his 70th birthday, Russian President Vladimir Putin met with the leaders of other former Soviet republics, and he called for the resolution of conflicts that erupt in the region. Of course, Putin is directly responsible for launching the biggest war in recent history in this part of the world. Russia's invasion of Ukraine was aimed at reasserting Moscow's control over part of the former Soviet Union. Instead, this increasingly disastrous war has weakened Russia's influence across the region, including here in Central Asia.
Unless something changes dramatically and Russia rebounds, we will see Russia's role certainly diminishing in Central Asia for sure.
Kadir Toktagulov is a former ambassador to Washington from Kyrgyzstan, a small former Soviet republic with close economic and security ties to Moscow.
To see this kind of attack by Russia against Ukraine was certainly disorienting, because it sort of showed the terrible things that Russia is capable of.
Of the leaders of the former Soviet republics, only Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus has publicly supported Russia's war in Ukraine. Russia conducts joint military exercises with its other 4 mutual defense treaty allies. But when it comes to the Ukraine war, they have all stayed publicly neutral, and that includes Kazakhstan. In January, the authorities here used deadly force to crush a violent uprising that left dozens dead. Moscow answered an urgent call for help from the Kazakh government, leading a deployment of troops here on a brief peacekeeping mission. You can still see burn marks on some buildings after the violence last January. Russia came to the Kazakh government's help in its time of need, but the Kazakh president has made it clear he will not be getting involved in Moscow's war in Ukraine. As Russia's military faces more and more setbacks in Ukraine, tensions have exploded in other areas long seen as Russia's backyard. Deadly fighting raged across the border between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan in September. Meanwhile, hundreds died in separate cross-border clashes last month between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Moscow refused a call for military assistance from its treaty ally, Armenia. And now the Armenian government is working with the European Union to negotiate a settlement. Moscow is on the back foot due to its destructive war of choice. And that's leaving a growing power vacuum across the former Soviet Union.
And the nation comes together to wish Bollywood legend Amitabh Bachchan a very happy birthday as the star turns 80.
रोशनी कर खुदा को मंजूर आंधियों में चिराग जलते हैं Happy birthday dear Amitabh Bachchan Happy birthday to you